Hello. So this week we're going to focus on Earth. I just wanted to apologize on the short notice with class this week, and I had some difficulties with this video. So this is my second time uploading. Because of the delay, I will give you your Earth quiz also via Blackboard, and you'll have a week to complete it. So it will go up on Wednesday, Tuesday, the 1st, and you'll have until November 8th at 2 p.m. to complete it. So hopefully by that time, you'll have enough information. You can ask any questions on Tuesday in class that you need around the clarity of Earth. I'll go over your association chart with you on Tuesday in class as well. So let's get right into it. Earth is going to fall on the Chinese body clock from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And remember, that's when we said is a great time for our stomach and our spleen. So we want to introduce food ideally at this time of day. And our yin organ association being the spleen, or ST for abbreviation. The spleen is really a big contributor in how the energy through food that we bring into our body then circulates through our blood. And the yang organ is stomach. So remember, yang organs are hollow, and our stomach is associated with the earth energy. Earth is all about and associated with that sense of security, our home, our family, how connected we are. This has a lot to do with feeling grounded, rooted, secured. Earth is also about our physical nourishment. So think of the food that we bring in and the process with the stomach and the spleen. And as far as the emotional aspect of Earth is very nurturing and supportive, very mothering. It has a lot to do with fertility and receptivity. So how we receive what's going on around us, what we really pick up on, what we associate with, that act of giving and receiving is our receptivity. And what we're picking up on around us, the earth energy people have a really good time with understanding what other people are going through. Typically they'll pick right up on that, and so we could see if that was in balance, that could be really a great quality to have, nurturing, mothering, being able to help out others. But then if it's out of balance, we could see where somebody could maybe put their needs above others, sacrifice themselves, or chronic condition of sacrificing themselves, putting others before themselves. So that is about our earth element. The theme is really about absorption and transformation. So if we think of that from the physical perspective, about bringing in energy through food, through consumption, through our drink, through our breath, and transforming that into the self, giving us energy to do things, to be healthy, and all of that. And then from a psychological standpoint, absorbing what's around us with relationships, environment, and using that as our fuel to decide and be who we are. So that is our theme of Earth. From the psychological standpoint, just think of analytical reasoning, thinking about something and coming up with a conclusion. Reflective thought, it has a lot to do with cognition and the way that we think. And if you think of mental chewing of the cud, when cows chew their cud, it's they're doing this slow digestive, regurgitating, digesting process. And so if we think of that from a psychological standpoint of chewing the cud, it's okay, we've witnessed something, or we've felt something, we've been a part of something, and now we're taking time to really think about it. What did that person mean by that? Or how is that person doing, or what about this environment reflects like what's really going on. And so that could also be like sympathy or concern or a deeper understanding. You see like people who maybe have those themes in their life where they're just always finding somebody that they can help. And then thinking attaches to the conscience of the body. So this thought process that the earth energy provokes is that from this conscious level, what you know you're doing might be attached to whatever emotion comes up. A lot of times that's like worry or like overthinking about what's going on, and that will sort of sway a lot of the choices and decisions that are made from a thought process. So we've kind of talked a little bit about the imbalances already, but like somebody who's going to mull over something and just keep thinking about it, or then after something occurred, maybe they didn't like the way that it turned out, and then they're brooding or they're just upset about how the circumstances transpired. But instead of like saying something about it and addressing the like elephant in the room, this person is more likely to just like stay in their head about it. This could also look like worry, just like overthinking and obsessing. And then this could turn into self-pity. So an example being if the person who maybe went out of their way to be really helpful and figure things out for their friend, but then at the end of the day, the same person might feel like, oh, nobody cares about me. All I do is care about other people, and nobody comes in to save me or take care of me or care about me. So that's where we can see like if it's out of balance, how this acts of like caring and worrying could turn into self-pity. From the cognitive side, it could also be that inability to really concentrate and stay focused because you might be so concerned with other things that are going on, and that's using up valuable space and energy for you to actually be able to focus and get your work done. Could also look like somebody who's just confused or has a hard time making decisions, like this irrational thinking, like maybe a lot of times the problem solver just wants to take over and doesn't really think of like the risk or what that would cost. Mental apathy, so like really just that like brain fog, lost thoughts, and almost like that I can't remember why I started doing something. If we think of apathy and like kind of like a wasting away type of effect. Lethargy, as in feeling fatigued, tired, and there could also be boredom or disinterest that shows up with the imbalance. So Earth is really about like giving and receiving in those social settings. So when somebody's balanced, they're all about creating relationships that are mutually give and take, beneficial and supportive. If it's imbalanced, you're going to see the extreme of a person who gives without receiving or receives without giving. So if you think of like an example of the gives without receiving, like caretakers or martyrs, just devoting themselves to others, sacrificing all the time, or the opposite, receiving without giving, would be like freeloaders who are just going to neglect or shrink their own personal responsibility, and maybe depend on others for finances, services, emotional support. So some of the stereotypical career paths of our Earth energy dominant people could be social workers, massage therapists, psychologists, ministers, physical therapists, nurse, doctor, teacher, handyman, somebody who comes in and fixes the problem, somebody who you can rely on. And a lot of these to like, well, all of them to an extent, have that caregiver role, right? So in their own personal lives, they could have these like codependent relationships where they are supporting other adults, whether it's like socially or legally. And this could also, if we're looking at the other side of the pendulum, people who seek out relationships where they're supported. So just perpetually needy, just relying on others, like roommates who never pay their share of the rent on time. Just neglecting, eating others' foods, imposing just this right to feel like they can borrow things and rides and favors and all that. So the spiritual capacity is yi, or our verbally expressed thoughts. This is also our heart mind. And this, if you think of it from English terms, it'd be like our purpose. It also has to do with intellect, but not so much intellect as of like how smart we are, but just really being able to observe what's going on around us, having that like reflective thought, but our purpose mostly. As far as direction goes, think of the center. Remember, Earth being like in the center with the energy movement. Also has a lot to do with being still. And when we're in a balanced earth energy, we feel grounded. But if we're out of balance, we might feel this like tiredness, lethargy, or purposeless over an activity or just overall. As far as the emotion goes, worry is the main emotion that we see with the earth energy as far as like how that shows up. Also like concern, sympathy, reminiscence, and overthinking. So the color of the soil in China is yellow. And so that's why we'll think of yellow. This yellow that's on the background is a good example like that, like deep, rich, earthy yellow. And yellow is also the color of peace and abundance. And if it's out of balance, you'll see yellowing around the mouth or eyes. Singing is the sound. So if you ever think of like really singy song voices, when somebody is just so happy to see you and they start singing when they're talking and how are you doing? Maybe you've had a waitress like this, maybe like your mother talks to you like this, or you've heard other mothers talk to like their children, or other kids are in that like sing song like voice, almost like a lullaby. And if we think of it, it's like conveying that message of empathy or understanding, no matter what they're actually saying when they have that sing song voice. The fragrant odor, or like a sickly sweet odor, is our smell. You can find this if you smell used tartar on dental floss sometimes, but like a sickly sweet, sweet, fragrant, floral type of smell. The sense organ is our mouth. This is where digestion starts, the portal to the stomach. This also has to do with like cravings or neediness. If there is disharmony in the earth organs, we could see like sticky mouth, bleeding gums, mouth ulcers, cold sores, even the inability to taste food. So the taste is also sweet. And if there is a sweet tooth craving, that is a disharmony of the earth energy. Our season is late summer. It's also called Indian summer. It's also the last 10 days of all the other seasons. So if we think of it as like that period of like stillness in preparation for the change, also called the doyo. If you get sick in between seasons, it might be a really good idea to nourish and balance that earth energy. Also, people could find difficulty in adapting to this time and their symptoms could be worse. I know for me, like how I know I'm a little bit imbalanced here is because it seems like at the change of every season, I will be like a little sad, a little unaccepting of the change that's coming, more so like, oh, there was more I wanted to do this season. And now it's over and it's too late. And like all of a sudden I can't do what I want to do because now we're in a different season. And I can get finding myself like just a difficult time to adapt during that. So maybe you relate to that too. As far as the climate goes, heavy, dampness, sticky. If we think a lot of times too, like that beginning of fall. So if we're thinking of like end of summer, beginning of fall, it's typically quite damp in that beginning part of fall. Like the grass is damper. We just have that heaviness a lot of times in the air. Whereas like the second part of fall or autumn is usually a little more drying. Our element is yin. As far as like earth is concerned, earth is a very yin element. It's not yang. Overall, it's very yin. It's feminine, it's calm, it's still. And so just keep that in mind. And then earth, the time of day, we talked about that. But just remember 7 to 9 for the stomach, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for the spleen. And this is when our digestive capacity is at its greatest in the morning. So imbalance would look like trouble with appetite in the morning, not eating until mid-morning or afternoon. And if we also like think of like maybe from the Chinese medicine perspective, like eating heavier in the morning when you have the rest of the day to utilize that energy that you consumed, and then eating your lighter meals towards the evening, which is maybe a little bit different than we're used to doing. So the spleen is considered our primary digestive organ in traditional Chinese medicine, and it's all about transformation and transportation. So if we see disharmony, it could look like physically a sagging or a collapse of the spleen. Also, just in general, like in the body, hemorrhoids, hernias, and organ prolapse. With the spleen, there's an important link with our eating and drinking. So if we have excessive thirst, sticky mouth, a preference for food with a high liquid content, we don't salivate very well, those are all signs pointing to a low supply of digestive juices. So our spleen is really what helps nourish and moisten our digestive system. And so we want to make sure we're drinking plenty of water and foods with high water content to support that. And also like doing things like eating in the morning and doing other activities like surrounding yourself with the color yellow, maybe even eating foods that are yellow. Those can all be really nourishing for the spleen. And it's not just about the spleen. We know all of these organs are working together, but that might just be a good starting point. If there are dysfunctions of the spleen, it can show up as like no appetite or like overeating, constantly nibbling, which is making your digestive system work on overdrive all the time. Eating too quickly, we really want to like slow down to give our body a chance to catch up while we're eating. Craving sweets or no appreciation of taste. Spleen is often associated too with a lack of exercise. So this phrase of overusing the mind and underusing the body. So to nourish your spleen, doing things like exercise is actually really beneficial. If we might see fatigue come up as a symptom of there's disharmony with the spleen, reproductive hormones are associated with stomach and spleen. And we do have hormonal changes in the menstrual cycle and pregnancy, but overall, like taking care of those two organs is really important for hormonal health. Breast tenderness and tiredness is also associated with spleen, and if the spleen is not functioning well, you can see disruptions in the menstrual cycle. with the spleen meridian, there's 21 points, and it starts at the medial side of the big toe, and it stays pretty medial on that edge of the big toe, travels up the medial aspect of the instep of our foot over the medial malleolus or ankle bone. Then it ascends or goes up to the inner surface of the leg in that groove that's posterior, just behind the shin bone. It's inside the edge of the kneecap, and then it goes up the medial edge of the muscle rectus femoris, a quadricep muscle. Then it ascends through the abdomen. It stays lateral to the stomach meridian along the outside border of our rectus abdominis muscle, and then it ascends into the rib cage diagonally and laterally up the lateral or the outside edge of the breast to the second intercostal space. And it then descends to its last point that's halfway down the side of the rib cage. So that's where spleen 21 is located, in the mid side of the torso, halfway between our armpit and our 11th rib. So this is our spleen meridian, again, starting on the medial aspect of the toe, ascending through the midline of the leg, and then it goes up the torso, all the way almost up to the collarbone, and then we have this descend down to spleen 21. And you can see that we go to the deepest part of the armpit and find the midway of the axle, or I'm sorry, of the rib cage. We'll find that in the space of the 11th rib. Our stomach, so stomach and spleen work together to create the postnatal chi from the food and drink and air that we consume. The stomach is really what initiates that process of digestion, because that's where the food goes and the drink, and we have this rotting and ripening. Think of almost like if you've ever made compost or know what that is, how we bring in like our scraps into the soil, they mix together and they create this byproduct. And that's what also happens here. We have then the passing of the pure portion of food and energy and that postnatal chi to the spleen to help transform the blood and chi. Our stomach disorders are often like a reversal of the normal direction of descending. So it's called rebellious stomach chi. So if we think of like hiccups, burping, belching, any sort of like nausea, acid reflux, hiccups, and vomiting, they're all going in the opposite direction of the normal flow of our stomach chi. Our stomach also represents the quest for nourishment. It's encompassing all of our appetites and our hunger. And it's our sense of security, wanting to know, our hunger for knowledge and love. The disharmonies will typically manifest on the front side of the body. That's where the meridian is located as well. You'll also see, because of the location of the meridian, symptoms in tension in the jaw, sternocleidoid mastoid muscle, eye strain from too much reading, and maybe that's like on that quest for knowledge. Nasal congestion, heavy thighs or legs, knee problems, and weakness in the feet and ankles. Our stomach meridian is one of the three great yang. So we have our stomach on the front of the body, our gallbladder on the side of the body, and then our urinary bladder on the back. So those are our three great yang. And that should say 45 points for the stomach. So stomach 1 is at the lower edge of the eye socket, just below the pupil when you're looking straight ahead. And stomach 45 ends on the lateral edge of the nail of the second. So stomach goes under our eye to our nose, mouth, jaw, up to our temple, and then down the medial aspect of the torso. Notice where the points go. There's only one more meridian that gets closer to the midline, and that's the kidney. So this descends through the torso and then goes down the medial anterior aspect of the leg, right through the knee, and then over the top of the foot, ending on the lateral edge of the second toe. I encourage you to do this Earth Makaho to try it on your own. We'll try it in class on Tuesday. This is a great way to open up your stomach meridians and send energy to the spleen meridians as well. If you have any questions about these slides, don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much. Hopefully you've had time to do your quiz online, and I will see you in class on Tuesday.